I want to dive in and start talking about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 3. This was my favorite episode so far. This episode was action packed, filled with story beats, character beats, and I want to dive straight into it. But first, I want to know from you guys, what are your thoughts on the first 2 episodes of the series so far? Christian, I want to start with you.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of this. I'm a fan of a lot of Marvel stuff, and I get really annoyed that we're living in just Marvel territory and they're doing it better than DC consistently across the board. I'm personally hurt from that. Doesn't make me feel good. But I really enjoy that they have always set this bar. I mentioned this on our show, that there's always a bar of how good it's going to be. It's always going to be a certain amount of funny. It's always going to be a certain amount of entertaining. It's always going to be a certain amount of zhuzh that makes it a special Marvel show or a Marvel movie. And they're proven with WandaVision and Winter Falcon Soldier that they're doing that. And I appreciate that. And I find this is covering, it takes turns. I think I know what I'm going to see. I think I'm going to see a buddy cop thing. They've sold me on that. And I'm expecting that. And it's doing that well. But also, you've got the elements. We're in spoilers, right? This is the
spoiler show. Full spoilers, yeah.
Right. You've got the Captain America character who is taking over the mantle, and it adds this whole new conflict, and it's very, very fascinating to see someone pick it up, and you kind of hate him, but you kind of like him and understand him. So he's not fully a villain at that point, but he is someone that's unlikable, and we're rooting obviously for Bucky and Captain Falcon. And so I enjoy that interplay. I did not expect that, and that's to me the most fascinating part of the show so far. So I'm enjoying that element.
Yeah, definitely. Brian?
I have had a ton of fun with this show so far. Coming off of WandaVision, where we kind of had to work to get to the real emotional character moments, this kind of drops us right in, and these characters are already established. There's a lot of the groundwork that's been done, so they just get into really diving deep into the history of both these characters, and I think it's been done excellently so far. I mentioned it on our show last night, but how great it looks. There's so much money clearly on the screen. It's just inseparable from stuff you'd see in a theater in MCU movies for me.
Yeah.
And I think the second episode, the action choreography, there's one particular scene on top of, is it a train or trucks?
Two semi trucks.
The semi trucks that
amazing.
Is just absolutely unbelievable, and the kind of stuff that you're just not getting in most television and really most movies even. So I was pretty impressed. Christian, to your point about Captain America, I don't trust this guy. I don't trust him as far as I could throw him at this point, but we'll get into episode 3, kind of confirmed some of my suspicions a little bit.
Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, I've really been enjoying this show as well. I echo a lot of the sentiments that both Christian and Brian have stated. Like, this show is delivering on your average action-packed MCU level, what we expect to see in an MCU film. But I talked to you a little bit about this after watching the first episode. I was actually really surprised at how they're exploring the emotional complexity of both Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, how they're both coping with their pasts, as well as the loss of this mutual friend, how they're trying to navigate the waters of defining what their relationship is. Because they were heavily reliant on this one person to be the glue between the two of them. And now that one person is gone, they kind of need to redefine what this relationship means for both of them. You know, Sam, as he's going through this show, is kind of discovering the downsides to what it means to hold the mantle of being Captain America. And we'll talk a little bit about what his opinion is at this time in episode 3, when we talk about that. But there's a lot of negativity he's realizing that's kind of associated with that mantle. And Steve really brought a genuine life and a positivity to it. But now that it's been handed off to someone who's a little more militaristic, it has more negative connotations associated with it. And then with Bucky, we're exploring his PTSD, him battling with being the Winter Soldier for so many decades. And now that he's kind of gained his agency back, he has to live with everything that he did because he was conscious for all of it, regardless of whether he wanted to do those things or not. So I just didn't expect that. I know you and I kind of like thought that maybe they would do that, and I'm pleasantly surprised that they are. I'm also pleasantly surprised that the show isn't shying away from this, systematic racial issue that we're experiencing as a country. I think that's super important, especially with Sam Wilson inevitably going to pick up the Captain America mantle by the end of this show. I don't think that's a spoiler. Like, that's totally going to happen. I'm glad to see that Marvel is doing that. I think it's important. So I'm really digging what the show is putting down. I'm excited to see where it goes now that we're like halfway through the series.
Same. Like this show really, really surprised me. I did not expect to get so much action and so much like emotional character beats to these characters right out of the gate. So I thought that was really, really impressive. Christian and Brian, I kind of want to toss this to you real quick. What were your thoughts when you found out about Isaiah Bradley? I know you guys aren't the biggest comic book people, but did you know about Isaiah Bradley prior? And if you didn't, what did you think about his reveal in episode 2?
I actually had no idea about Isaiah Bradley's character prior, but once they introduced it, it felt like an element of the time period that Captain America First Avenger is exploring that we didn't really see in that movie, about kind of what's going on behind the scenes with people of color at that time and where the experimentation really began. And for me, it was really exciting. I was like, this opens up so many doors for previous stuff and lore, and I was completely here for it. But I wasn't familiar with him previously, so it wasn't like a, oh my gosh, it's him moment, unfortunately.
Yeah. Christian?
I actually had heard, like, I guess there's fragments in my brain from, my nerdy friends like Chris, who have told me facts about comic book stuff, that when I heard the character and I saw him, I was like, oh, he's a super soldier from before. I remember that. That's in my brain. And I thought it was really cool. I'm a little disappointed that we're not getting, I want to go down that rabbit hole.
I would love a flashback of him at like full power on the battlefield in costume.
Hell
That
yeah.
would be
Him to be
awesome.
involved.
Yes, bro.
Him to be involved more, because it's so interesting, and it's the show's trying to tackle some of the stuff is trying to tackle, might help to incorporate that more.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll have time. I mean, because it's only 6 episodes, but man, I would love some type of flashback of just like a quick scene, even if it's just the fight between Isaiah and Bucky. I think that would be great, just to jump back to like 1951 and just watch that fight between them and to see how that went, to see what his strength was like compared to Steve, because I mean, he gave Bucky the work. He broke his arm in half. So I mean, he was the closest to being like the way Steve was. So it's very important to me that they brought Isaiah into the show, and we'll get into a lot of that when we talk about episode 3. So let's dive into it, right? From the end of episode 2, it was Sam and Bucky's plan to not break Zemo out of prison. That wasn't exactly the plan right away, but to visit Zemo and try to get information from him about Hydra. So Vash, I actually want to start with you, and I want to know some of your favorite moments from episode 3.
My favorite moments of episode 3 is that I love how Bucky tells Sam, so, hey, let me tell you, hypothetically, if this happens, hypothetically speaking, because I do this to a lot of my friends, and they're like, hey, hypothetically, if this happens. So I just love how Bucky just spoke to him like that, and it wouldn't happen, and then he just pop up and like, hey, what's up? And then he was like, wait, what the fuck is going on here? So I love how he kept questioning, and how Bucky literally gave the hands to those people. Damn, I forget the name. And
In Madripoor?
Thank you. He gave those hands to those people in that bar, and it was amazing. He literally, I think he kicked like 6 asses. I think like good 6 to 8 people asses. I was like, damn. And then Zemo said like, he still got the skills, it's just easy. Just tell him to fight. He fights good and everything. So I love
flip
that.
the switch. Yeah.
Dude, during that scene, I was watching with my wife, and she turned to me and she was like, I think he's more comfortable like that. Like, and he is, he's been the Winter Soldier for such a long time. It's hard communicating with people, and it's hard building new relationships. But if he can default to fighting, that's a zone where he's comfortable. And you can tell in this episode.
He was great, and that's why I think he wants to work with Sam, because he feels like he was working with Cap because he was a soldier. Like once you're a soldier, you're always a soldier. So like that's why Cap never gave up on fighting, or like never settled down, because he always in war. Back before and then back to the Avengers. So, and to see Sharon Carter here, and I have a couple theories for that, so I can't wait to talk, because I told James he's like interesting, so I'm like can't wait to see what you guys think about that too. So to see Sharon as well, that's pretty dope. But my overall favorite part throughout the show is the chemistry between Zemo, Bucky, and Sam. The tension, the way Zemo spoke to them, the way Zemo carried himself as the character, and the way he showed like, hey, I've always been rich, I'm a baron. So I love those type of scenes as well. Like this episode is my favorite, and also they brought more information about Isaiah Bradley as well. They didn't mention, but we knew who they were talking about because he was in the most recent episode. So I love this episode very much because they gave a lot of seeds. But those were my favorite moments. I will get into depth much later on.
Being completely transparent, I watched it while I was so I need to watch it again, because there's moments you said I think I missed because I was, but I really like Zemo. Zemo is you may know this, James and Chris and Brian. Vash, you're new, but I really love Civil War. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but personally for me, I really love it. And this whole series is a sequel to that. So I am enjoying seeing the chemistry. I think it's a little silly because there wasn't the barrenness, that's a phrase, wasn't really a part of Civil War. So for him to come out and be like, I've got a plane, I'm the Baron. Like I'm a Baron, I have lots of money.
There's definitely an element there where they're like, the comic book fans want this. Let's just give it to them, because
I know the finer things in life.
He's Baron Helmut Zemo, but they, like you said, they didn't explore that title in Civil War. But things like the purple mask and him gaining the Baron status, that's definitely there to like satisfy the comic book fans, I think.
Was I mistaken? He found the mask in a random car. It was like,
It was his car.
It was his car.
Those are all his
it's
cars.
all his
Like,
family's his family stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way,
it adds up.
Civil War is my least favorite movie of the MCU.
You're crazy, dude.
Get out of
Oh
here.
my
You
God.
think that Iron Man 3 is a better movie than
I
Civil War?
No, I said it's in my lower tier. It's like my least favorite. But James,
Okay, I was about to kick you off.
But
You know what?
James,
I was going to say, I think I
we
need to
will
leave.
discuss in May and June that we will have like a tier list for the MCU's films, since there will be no MCU properties coming out.
Sounds like
we will have a tier list
backpedaling.
there. But
He's like,
Look
no
at
tier,
how
no
sad you
mid
made
tier,
the Joker.
no tier. That's my mid tier.
It's in my lower tiers.
Higher mid tier.
It has no.
Interesting.
Like in my top 5.
That film,
Yeah, right?
That film should have been 2 films. They had too much story. The structure was really too much.
Too much story, too much action.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about this on a future episode because that's a hot take, man. Interesting.
Really?
It's a hot take.
Brian, I'm going to toss it to you. Like, what were some of your favorite moments?
Yeah, so I'll piggyback off a couple of things you guys are saying. I think Zemo and the element of comedy, as well as kind of reflection and perspective that he provides, he's become this villain where it's like, okay, he's making a lot of good points that are getting through to Sam in particular, but Bucky as well on some level, I think. Obviously, they have a more complicated relationship. But Zemo, this was also my favorite episode so far, largely because of Zemo and the kind of adventure film that it became with them going through things this time. I really liked how they're kind of opening up. In previous episodes, they talked about how the Avengers got paid through like these non-governmental organizations or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now we've got the Global Repatriation Council really showing us the bureaucracy and the functional buildups of the blip and how the world is dealing with it, and how you have just half a world of displaced people in some cases. I really like how they're putting us on the ground there and giving us the perspective into what the terrorist organization is coming from and where they're coming from. And that takes a very dark turn. They try to make her character sympathetic a little bit, and then she's shown to be very ruthless, and willing to take lives just like some of the other villains we've seen. So Yeah, that was definitely a solid moment. I think Sam reflecting on saying he maybe should have destroyed the shield. He really is going through so much here and doesn't know how to process a new Captain America. And just to talk about new Captain America, him being this, he just seems completely different than Steve Rogers in the worst way possible. You know, he is already from day one willing to cut corners, go against what he's supposed to stand for. And it seems like, what are you not willing to do? And it seems like maybe there's not much that he's not willing to do, which is worrisome given the power that he has.
He used a gun in his first mission. And I know Steve used a gun during World War II, but like contemporary Captain America, we never saw him use a gun ever.
Yeah, that's
Right.
different. That was wartime. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like this is
Exactly.
not wartime. It's like Cap shouldn't be using a gun. That's why you have the shield.
Right.
Right. So aside from that, the moment when Sam gets the call when they're in the meeting in the back of the club was just peak tension and
Oh, I love
freaking
that.
me out, like just skeezing out in my seat. And the scene, Vash, you mentioned it. It's almost like an Ocean's 11 where they're talking through the heist while the heist is playing out. Amazing stuff. And lastly, the moment when Bucky goes to meet Zemo in his in prison, I got very much like Silence of the Lambs vibes,
Yeah.
Clarice and Hannibal Lecter. So I was really digging that as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love in that scene how his go-to, Zemo's go-to is to immediately
Reciting the
start
words.
reciting the words.
Oh my god! Yes.
And we get an inkling that like he already knows that Bucky has been undone. You know, the brainwashing's been undone, but
Right.
he's still like, I
deprogrammed.
just want to see what happens. He's experimenting, you know, which is really creepy.
Well-
I agree with Vash. I think that opening scene, and Brian as well, is one of the best scenes in this whole episode, especially the way it's framed as an event that's already taken place. There's no way Sam can stop it. And like Vash said, Bucky's speaking in like hypotheticals, and then Zemo just shows up. And there's nothing Sam can do about it. I really like that. Vash, you're gonna say something?
Two things that I forgot to mention that were my favorite moments. John Walker got spit in the face. That was pretty dope. Like, hey, I love that scene. That was pure gold because he's like, ah. And also Sam, he got the balls to literally eat a ball from a snake. Literally,
Yeah.
like
that was nasty.
And he's staring. He's like, and the Bucky's like, are you gonna do it? Like,
It's like you got to do
Yeah,
it.
you gotta play the
he
role.
was just saying like, you gonna do it? You gonna do it? And then
I
when he
love
drank, he like
these.
this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good job. He's like, good job, my son. Good job. I
The
don't know how
thumbs
Bucky
up
was just paying
killed
attention,
me.
like, yeah.
Giving
like,
the
yeah.
thumbs up after that killed me. It's so
I'd
funny
rather-
and very out of character for the person he's supposed to be playing. Clearly,
I'd rather
Yeah.
ruin the op than drink that. I'm sorry. I would be like, nope, I can't do that. Nope, I can't.
just kill me.
Yeah,
just kill
get
me
everyone
now.
killed.
I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I'm dying right here. I'm
This
good.
is too much.
I mean,
lived a good life.
theoretically, someone has had it before. I mean, that was what I would think would be like, this guy eats this. All right, let's go for it.
But still, just
Probably not going to
just-
kill me. Yeah.
But still, just eating a whole bowl of a snake. You literally just cut up a regular snake inside. Like, you literally had a snake inside the back of the bar right there. You literally just cut here. Just put it inside some type of rum or some type of whiskey. Just take it like a normal shot.
I think you're
Fresh.
expecting
Yeah.
it to be. Listen, you're expecting it to be bad, right? But the real problem would be if it's like your favorite thing, because that's really hard to get.
Chris, did you have any other favorite moments?
Yeah, I had there were two other moments that I really enjoyed, and that is Zemo's speech when they're on the plane, explaining how the dangers of putting our heroes up on a pedestal, and how that leads to cities falling from the sky, and it also leads to villains rising up like the Red Skull. There's always going to be a balance, right? There, like if we have a Captain America who represents good, we're also going to get characters like Red Skull, and Baron Zemo. He's kind of a third party standing from the outside. Maybe not totally completely removed because his family were victims of one of these events, but he's trying to look at it on a macro level. And he realizes that, like, truth be told, having superheroes in the world is not a positive thing because of what it leads to. You know, they might save us from some things, but they also create monsters at the same time. And I think, Sam Wilson really takes that in and begins to think about more of what that means for him picking up the mantle as Captain America. And that leads to the scene that Brian was talking about, where he's saying that he should have destroyed the shield. And I think the dynamic between Sam and Bucky in that moment represents both of their characters so well, because Sam is talking about destroying this icon. And if you notice, Bucky, his immediate go-to is like, I'll take it myself. I'll take it from you. Like, it means so much to him that he is not willing to let it go. He's not willing to let Steve go. And I'm so interested to see where these characters end up by the end of this series, because they're dealing with so much right now. It's super cool.
Yeah, I think that's why I agree that Zemo is one of the most interesting characters. That's a great point. And I think they're still using him to great effect, because at the end of the day, he's interesting because he has no superpowers at the moment. I don't know if he ever gets superpowers.
He's rich.
Not a nerd.
His superpowers are being rich.
From the comics, the only thing he gets is the super soldier serum, but I'm not sure if the movie or the MCU is going to give that to him. But that's the only thing he gets from the comics. Other than that, he doesn't really get any special. He has special gear, like equipment that shoots rays and like guns and everything. But he doesn't have anything.
Rays.
But he doesn't have anything crazy like Thor, Iron Man, and like that. No.
As it currently stands, he's very human.
Yes.
And he doesn't have any superpowers, so the super interesting thing about him has to be he's interesting. So the writers can't rest on cool rocket boots or whatever at the moment. And then also, he's the most justified villain in the MCU, because if you think about it, his family died because the Avengers were fighting a thing that one of the Avengers made. A problem they created, they were trying to stop, right? So you'd be like, yeah, that's probably not a good thing. I'm gonna make them kill each other from the inside. So I'm Team Zemo all the way.
All right.
Joker's Team Zemo. Go figure.
I just wanted to say, James, I'm sure you've got some more to dive into here, but Sharon absolutely kicking ass while holding off the bounty hunters was incredible. I thought that was one of my favorite fight scenes so far throughout the series, actually.
Yeah, Sharon kicked so much ass in that scene. Like, that was one of my favorite moments.
Just so many guys. It didn't matter.
Yeah, it was like I couldn't even count. Like, it was like 7, 8 guys. She just like completely marked them just completely by herself. Like, that was one of my favorite moments. Like, another one of the biggest takeaways from this episode for me was the doctor, right? Like, the doctor, after 70 plus years, he was the one that got the closest to Erskine's formula to be able to create these super soldiers and then modify it so that it doesn't require the solar rays that they needed to make Steve bulky and everything. Like, they get all of the strength, all of the benefits without all of that other stuff. So I thought that was really, really cool. And the moment we found this guy, I knew Zemo was going to kill him, because Zemo, even before the events of Age of Ultron, his entire mission was to find these Hydra cells and shut them down. This is what he's been doing. So it's like, I knew he was going to kill him, right? And I think he needed to. I'm not upset with that at all. This person needed to go, unfortunately, because we found out he was working for Hydra. Then he was picked up by the CIA, got blipped, came back, and now he's working for the power broker, right?
And
this is the thing. Like, even if they arrested him, the government would just go back to the same thing they were doing before, trying to recreate super soldiers, trying to replace the Avengers, to create a team of soldiers that they can control. And that needed to be stopped. So I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah.
Vash, you gonna say something?
I was gonna say that once he said that he's a god, I was like, "Yo, Zemo, just come right now, right there." Like, once he saw himself as a god, I'm like, "Nah, like you took it too far." Like once you said that you're above everyone else, I was like, "Can somebody just shoot him? Like, come on, Bucky, like just use your arm, cut off his head." Like, that's when it just pissed me off. Like his
That would have been dark.
No, like, I know, but like once he kept going off his speech of what James said, like he just felt like he was the only one that could do this. And like, all right, cool. You're very egotistic. You think you're a genius. All right, cool. But the once he said, "I'm a god, I could do this," I'm like, oh my dude, you're
full
about
on
to die,
mad scientist.
Yeah, like you went full on mad scientist. Like, just you're about to die right now. Like in like probably 5 seconds. It's your fault.
And in the comics, this scientist, his backstory is a little bit different. This scientist was around during the 40s that helped with the experimentation after Cap went into the ice to try to recreate the super soldier serum.
He's the one that created Isaiah Bradley in the comic books.
Exactly. And in this, he pretty much took the tests on Isaiah Bradley and used that data to create his new formula, which I thought was something really, really cool. And William Nagel, the doctor, he also went under a different alias, I believe is Dr. Reinstein, who was working with Thunderbolt Ross to create the super soldier serum. So when he was working for the government, the super soldier serum that makes Abomination was from this doctor, which is insane when you think about it. They're bringing all of these different elements from across the MCU, from the comics, all together, and it's so cool. So that was actually like one of my favorite moments when I saw him. I was like, dude, that's the doctor that worked with Thunderbolt Ross, which is, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but this is why, another reason why I think that Thunderbolt Ross could potentially be the power broker, because the Accords,
definitely possible.
they're not getting anything done. The government's not getting anything done. And Thunderbolt Ross in the comics many times has gone off on his own to do his own thing. Him making himself Red Hulk was completely against any orders from the government. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. So I kind of want to get into it now, and then we can go into some other things. Let's get into it. Vash, I know you were talking, we were talking in chat. Who do you think is the power broker?
I think I already know who Vash thinks is the power broker. I'm excited to hear him say it, though.
Chris, I want to hear, who do you think I think that is the power broker?
I think you
What
might
if
think...
I think, what do I think, what Chris thinks, what Vash thinks?
Let's hear it.
I think it's Captain America, old Cap.
Okay.
Vash,
Wrong.
I want you to say it.
It's Sharon Carter.
I knew it.
Because throughout the bar they kept saying he, and I think MCU would throw a twist that's not he, it's actually a she. So that's one twist I think they would do, because how would you assume there's a he? Like, they just think that there's a king. It could also be a queen. That's the one that is watching over that is watching over Madripoor. So it could be Sharon Carter. And also at the end of the scene when she lets them leave and everything, she don't go with them, and then she meets up with a whole random chick that has been there the whole time. Like, where were you?
So sketchy.
Yeah, so sketchy. Like, where were you there when she was finding 8 of those dogs and everything? You could have helped her, but she just did it all, come back then on her own. And then she standing behind the car. Usually when you're like the kingpin, you always stay behind the car. So that shows, storytelling. That's when you have your own type of Uber driver and everything, and that's what this chick was driving their boss, aka the broker. That's what I feel like, and that's what I feel like the story. And she has this type of resentment against right now the USA, because she technically cannot go back. She hasn't speak to her father, she hasn't speak to his family, and she doesn't have the same clearance as Avengers. Like Sam, he was on the run, or was on the run, like she said. So she has this resentment against power people. That's why she probably did this type of stealing, getting super soldier serum, and getting people to bring back. So she has this type of resentment, hate. So that's what I feel like. Does anybody agree with me? How do you guys feel about Sharon?
This might seem like a cop-out, but I think you're both right. I think that they're clearly setting it up to at least make Sharon Carter a red herring to be the power broker. I don't know if they'll go all the way, because making one of Marvel's very few female characters, like who was good, turning her into a major villain, I don't know if that tracks super well, and if it's very PC, but we'll see. I think right now the most likely candidates are both of the people that you mentioned, Sharon Carter and Thunderbolt Ross, because we could potentially be getting a Thunderbolt series or movie or something coming up here in the future. And Thaddeus Ross has been obsessed with the Super Soldier program since the birth of Captain America, since knowing about Captain America and what he did during World War II. He's been trying to replicate that serum, as James mentioned. So I think both of those people are very real candidates to be the power broker. It could end up being neither of them. We went on this huge fucking Mephisto train during WandaVision, and that came to nothing.
Where's Mephisto?
Let the speculation begin, boys. Here we go again.
You make a good point, and hear me out. Just hear me out. What if It's Agatha all along.
It was Agatha. Agatha's the fucking power broker, dude.
She's a busy woman. I just want to say, even if these speculations aren't correct, this is the reason why I love this show, to get all of
that's the
your
great
brilliant
part.
knowledge that I have no context for. So this is great. I love these speculations, even if it doesn't turn out to be these two.
But Brian,
Right.
do you have a
Hashtag
speculation?
Sharon Carter is the power broker.
I really don't. I like the Sharon. I'm leaning towards Sharon now because she was kind of like suspiciously just around and aware of what was going on. So I could see that.
And
Bash
what she
Bash
said,
makes a lot of great points, though. Like, if you're a boss, you don't sit in the front seat.
you
That's
don't.
back seat all the way.
That's backseat.
Oh, yeah.
And also,
Oh, yeah.
she said
You get
to the lady,
chauffeured.
we have a couple problems, because she said, "Oh, we don't have one problem. We have a couple problems." So like, why would you say and know about these problems very well? Like, there's something going on. And also, she lives in Hightown. For you to live in Hightown and
Yeah.
also to know that you have a lot of important artifacts of museums that's technically supposed to be real, which I love how they really made that point, because that's been in the comics very much, that Hightown is only when rich people and the big bosses live there. And yeah, she said, "Oh, I have to make a living of it." Nobody really asked her what she does. Nobody really asked her why she hosted an event. So like Sam and Bucky.
How'd she get a hold of those real Monets?
Yeah. So
Where's
like,
she getting all this legitimate art, man?
Yeah,
So they're
like-
stolen, right? I think
yeah.
it was implied that it was stolen art, right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, but how did she do it?
But like,
Yeah.
she
Who
must
are-
have some connections.
correct.
She's not
Who
doing
are
it
her
herself.
connections? Who are her connections?
Sure.
Who are her drug dealers? Who are her plugs?
Yeah, I think, like Nova saying in chat, I think that Sharon knows who the power broker is, but I don't personally think that it's her. The reason why I don't think that, no matter what happened to her, she had so much respect for her grandmother, and she had so much respect for Steve. I highly doubt that she would track down a scientist to start rebuilding the super soldier program. What does she gain from doing any of that? I definitely think she's been doing some shady shit to stay alive. And again, I do think that she knows who the power broker is. But to that point, like, I don't know, I have no idea, but I can't think of any like list of events that could have happened in that 5 years. And I was like, you know what? Like, I don't care what my grandmother stood for, what Steve stood for.
Yeah,
I'm
throwing it
just
all
going
out the
to start
window.
creating
Yeah,
super
that's fair.
soldiers. And for what reason?
It
You know
all
what I
takes
mean?
one bad day, right, Joker?
Very, very true.
I do have a legitimate question, which is in this timeline, we have Steve Rogers, who has lived a life with Peggy, right? So does that affect Sharon's history? Are we even
Not
talking?
confirmed for us as the audience. We don't know, right?
The directors and the writers have different takes on how that timeline pans out.
Oh, that sounds like
Really?
some DC shit.
Yeah, yeah. one of them says that it's the same main MCU timeline, and others say that it's an alternate timeline. So
Right.
there's no official clarification.
For me, how I see it, it's a whole alternative timeline, and Steve is her dad. That's how I see it, and
That makes it so creepy.
But
Yeah,
then,
it's very
gross.
strange.
but then in this
Well, her-
timeline, but then in this
granddad.
timeline,
Her granddad, yeah.
sorry, granddad. But then in this,
No, her great uncle, Aunt Peggy.
You're right.
That'd be a gulf.
yeah, but then in this timeline, they never kissed. So that's my assumption. That's how I see it. Hopefully, it is like that. That's how I'm putting it in my headcanon type of way. That's how I'm putting
Yeah,
it.
I personally don't buy the alternate timeline. I don't think that makes sense. Like, we're gonna get into alternate timelines once we get Loki, because we know for a fact that Loki is in a different timeline.
Right.
I think this timeline is the one that we've been following the entire time. But again, I have no confirmation. I'm not the writers team. I'm not Kevin Feige. But we'll
But-
find out.
Maybe
James, I
maybe
wanna know-
Sharon is got a Baron Zemo thing where she's trying to get revenge on America and Captain America because Steve Rogers went back in time and fucked her grandma.
Sharon Zemo. I'm here for it.
I do want to see how she feels about that. Because, I mean, like, yeah, you and Steve had a thing. You risked your career, your freedom,
Oh, she
to
got blown
give
off,
him
dude.
the
I
shield.
feel bad for her.
and then he doesn't even say goodbye. He just goes back in time
Oh,
and, and fucks your ancestor.
This is kind of the one thing. This is kind of the one thing that makes Steve Rogers less likable. Like out of everything, I'm totally on team Captain America, but this is the one thing where I'm like,
yeah,
you didn't do
tell her
right by
goodbye.
That was
Like,
fucked up.
I do want to
Real
be
player.
happy. I gotta respect it. Like, Mando wanted to be happy. Like, Mando got tired of just staring at a paper and just be like, one last dance. Like, for the
He could have
past 8
said
years.
goodbye though.
He's also like
He
you
had-
kind
but
of
he
share the
how?
same genetics as the woman that I'm in love with. Like
He
you're
barely
related to
had
her in
time,
some way,
though.
so I guess you'll do.
How
Yeah,
would you feel if you fell in love with a girl and she went back in time and fucked your granddad? It just wouldn't feel good. Just wouldn't be a good experience.
As long as I
You might
don't
want to
know,
hunt down some super soldier serum and extract some revenge. That makes total sense.
But James, I do want to know, what do you think
Justified.
is Ross though? Like, because you said that's your theory of who you think is the broker, right?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. I think it's him because the Accords didn't work out. The Avengers still went on to do their own thing. He was trying to make Abomination. He made Abomination without the consent of the government. He didn't consult them at all. He hates the Avengers. He wants to create a world where he can create his own super soldiers that he can actually control, that's outside of the Avengers. And while the Avengers were gone during that 5-year gap, that would have been a perfect time for him to put pieces together to find people that can make the super soldier serum. And then when everybody came back, he found Dr. Nagel, and he was able to continue that research so that he can again create an entire army that will follow the rules of the Accords, because he can't control the Avengers, right? So that's the whole thing. He wants what the government has wanted since they created Cap. Real quick side tangent. One real reason why I don't like John Walker is because he's like Gilmore Hodge from the first Captain America movie. He is the perfect soldier in every way, physical specimen, but he doesn't have the heart, which is the most important
This is
thing.
it.
Yeah.
That's the most important part of being Captain America. And he doesn't have that. I think he is an absolute douchebag. And whenever he
100%.
does get the serum, and I think he's going to get the serum in the final
hell yeah.
episode, and the serum is going to turn him, it's going to take all of those bad things that are in him and amplify it to 11. And that's where he becomes US agent
Definitely.
and becomes the villain that we know. And this is where I think that Falcon and Winter Soldier might get a sequel, and the sequel will be Cap, Falcon, and Bucky going after US Agent and trying to stop him and Battlestar. But we'll see where it goes when we have.
I
more
agree with you,
information.
dude. I think everything that you just said about John Walker, I agree with that. But I also agree with the fact that Kevin Feige has said in interviews that there are going to be some MCU shows that will get season 2s. They will get sequel seasons. And
Okay.
The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is unlike WandaVision in that it's not a wholly contained story. Like when you're dealing with buddy cop characters, you could write as many seasons as you want about them, globetrotting and taking down supervillains. So I agree with you, man. I definitely think this show's more likely to get a season 2, a second run.
So Nova brings up something in chat that I didn't even consider. That's actually kind of fucking insane and really cool. The Power Broker is always watching, and it could be Armin Zola. It could be Zola.
That would be cool.
Because we see the base that Zola is in gets blown up in Winter Soldier, but he's essentially a computer who says, much like Ultron, he can't just transfer himself to another computer. And Nova also brings up that as soon as the Flag Smashers steal all of the resources from the Power Broker, it's Carly, right? Carly instantly receives a text message. So it's
Right.
like, that would be interesting if it's Zola. That would be really, really cool. Like, what do you guys think?
I think that would be a really cool idea. And I'm down for it. I think thinking Zola's going to be in the show is as crazy as thinking Mephisto was in WandaVision. But look, man,
It's possible.
I am here to speculate. I'm all about it. So fuck yeah, let Zola be in the show. I would love to see Toby Jones come back as like a weird robot version of himself. We've never really gotten like the true looking Zola from the comic books.
Yeah.
And we are getting a closer version of Zemo in this series to the comic books. So maybe they'll go all the way. Maybe just a big fucking screen with arms and a camera on top of his head. Like, let's do it. I'm here for it.
Plus, props to the custom designer, like whoever dressed up Sam. Props to that, because his suit was amazing, and the way Zemo was dressing up as well, his walk as him, like, we know he's a bad guy, but he does bad guy walking very well, because it makes me believe, like, okay, I should be scared of this dude because he knows how to walk like a bad dude, and the way he dressed with a turtleneck and everything, because like he makes it look good, because usually people like 007, dress up with turtlenecks, and they're good guys, but they make it look very nice and fancy, very nice, classy. But Zemo, you're looking nice and evil, so that's great.
I want that coat, dude.
That coat, he can walk
Give me
through
that coat.
I'm
It's
shocked
so
that
clean.
coat has not gotten dirty. I'm like, throughout the whole time him fighting fire explosion, I'm like, how's that coat not even got one scratch or burn on the side or nothing? How?
Weapons grade coat. It's
There you
incredible
go.
stuff.
I mean, he is rich, so.
This is it. Yeah.
Has to do with the microfibers in the coat. They repel dirt.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts on the Falcon and Winter Soldier episode 3 before we
I did
move
have a
on
question.
to? Yeah.
We didn't talk about the end where Winter Soldier met the Wakandan. How did he have
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
Ayo.
Yeah. So he meets Ao in an alley, and she has come for Zemo. What did you guys think about that? Because I thought that was really, really cool, and I'm actually kind of pissed at myself that as a fan I didn't see that coming, because the Wakandans failed to get what was Andy Serkis's character?
Claw.
Jaw,
Ulysses Claw.
Yeah, to get Claw. They failed to get Claw, and now Zemo's free. Zemo killed the king, bro. So they have to get justice for King T'Chaka. So Christian, I want to start with you. What did you think about that?
Lines up with the story. She's pissed, and I get it.
Yeah, I kind of had no idea that this was coming, but it makes sense. We kind of get in episode 1, Bucky reminiscing about Wakanda and it being kind of the one peaceful time of his life. And I think it's cool that we're potentially going to get some stuff that's happening in Wakanda, and it completely tracks with the revenge narrative of what Zemo's done in the past. So I didn't see it coming either, but I tend to be just clueless about this sort of stuff. But I'm definitely excited to see where it goes.
It's one of those things when you're not as into everything going on and thinking about it like you guys do so wonderfully on this show, of like she shows up and you're like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, no, she's not going to be happy.
Yeah, I thought that was a great callback because she was in Civil War with T'Challa. So I thought that was a really, really great callback to have her in this series trying to get Zemo. My thing is, what's going to happen? Is Bucky going to try to like bargain with her? Like, hey, like, we're trying to accomplish something. Like, let me hold on to Zemo, and then when we're done, we'll hand him over to you. But then I think Zemo's gonna escape.
He owes Wakanda so much.
He does.
Like it, I agree with you. I think that will be most likely what ends up happening. But he's in a position right now where it's really tough for him to decline any type of request that she has, because not only did they undo his brainwashing, they supplied him with a new vibranium arm, which was stronger than his original arm. Like he owes them a huge debt. So I don't foresee a situation in which he can just flat out say no. I think he'll have to deliver.
So I saw it coming because it was foreshadowed when Sam brought it up in this episode and last episode. Because when our boy Bucky said, hypothetically, if this happens, if he escapes and everything, and Sam was like, if Zemo escapes, the Wakanda won't be happy because they killed King T'Chaka, and they did this at the UN embassy. So I saw them happening, one of them coming. I just didn't expect it would be this episode. I thought it would be foreshadowed for the next episode, since usually when they speak about something, they usually gonna bring it for next episode. But it makes sense that it already popped up at the last scene because she's gonna bring up for the next 4 episodes most likely. But it's really curious to know how Bucky's gonna handle this, and I'm curious to know if Io is gonna be calling him White Tiger, not Bucky, because that's his name in Wakanda
White Wolf.
as well. Oh, yeah, White Wolf. Thank you, White Wolf. So I'm curious to know that if she's gonna be calling him White Wolf instead of Bucky. So that's gonna be very curious, and I hope that's the case, since that was his name over there, instead of James or Barnes, or instead of Bucky. I'm really curious to know. Hopefully they call him White Wolf instead, and I am curious to know how Bucky does his communication skills with his Wakanda people, because right now technically he needs it, because right now she's like looks like she wants to kill Zemo right now. Like she's like, hey, move out the way before I go jump over these buildings to start killing Zemo. So best of luck. to Bucky because he needs the best communication skills that he ever needed instead of staring.
Yeah,
He's gonna take over as therapist.
Like, hey, let's
she
talk.
was outside of that building, and as a warrior she feels like she failed, and this is her way of pretty much making up for that. So I think that's really, really cool. Like, Brian, what did you think about that scene?
About her coming back there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to see where it goes. I always involve the interconnectedness of these shows. And when you guys talked about the sequel potential for this, it's kind of blowing my mind how, in contrast to DC, they can seemingly so effortlessly, and for a casual viewer, relatively casual viewer, not see these things coming that are kind of obvious once they happen. But yeah, I think it just speaks to how masterful the intricacies of the MCU are. And yeah, it's definitely got me excited.
Yeah, I can't wait. It sucks that there's only 3 episodes left.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be dying after this. But this series has been so good. 3 episodes in, and I feel like I've already gotten so much from just the psyche of Sam and Bucky themselves. Zemo is not just a basic villain that I think he is in the comics, right? Like, to me, Zemo in the comics is just the guy trying to live up to his dad's expectations because his dad couldn't defeat Captain America. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's really interesting to me, and I really want to see like where they go. I love that the Flag Smashers are also not super generic villains. These are liberators. These are freedom fighters giving to the people that the government organization is not actually helping. They're putting them in camps. They say that they're helping them, but these people don't actually have medicine. They don't actually have the amount of food and water and the resources that they actually need. But because the government says that everything is okay, the regular people on the streets, they just believe it. They just believe the government. So I just love everything that they're doing with all of these characters. And looking back at WandaVision, it kind of makes me wish that Sword got a little bit more development, especially with it being 9 episodes and looking at what they've done in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I'm really excited to see where it goes, man. I am loving this series so far.